All right, everybody. This is another post-election um, update. What's going on with the election results? What's going on with the uh, country right now as Donald Trump is president-elect and gears up to take the White House next year? Um, so to follow up on the previous video, I think the results are finally in for the House. So the Republicans have, in fact, taken the House as well, which means that they now control presidency, and not right in this moment, but going into next year, once Donald Trump is sworn in after the inauguration, they will have control over the presidency. The House of Representatives and the Senate. So those both make up Congress. And they also have, I believe, a majority on the Supreme Court and many judicial seats throughout the country. So this is a pretty interesting dynamic because it really gives the Republicans the upper hand going into the, executive and congressional legislative branches next year. They're going to have a lot less resistance than they've had before. Now, that's going to be both a good thing and a bad thing. The beautiful thing about our constitutional republic system is that there's a balance of powers. We've obviously heard that in school growing up, but what it really means is each branch kind of balances out the other branches, and there's pushback and opposition from each side. But this is something that has actually been a long-standing practice, which is something I'm going to go into in a few moments here. We're going to look back at the history of America and elections, and we're going to kind of get an idea as to how we got here today and what the future looks like for this nation going forward for elections in 2028 and so on. So I think at this point, it's safe to say that the popular vote count, the totals are likely in. I don't know if they're still counting ballots in any of those two states, Nevada or Arizona. But we're going to take a look here, and this will give us a better idea as to what is actually going on. So this is just a basic Google search, but to be unbiased, I have both conservative-leaning and Democrat-leaning media sources here to kind of take a look at all this, so it's not biased. So this is the Associated Press. Everybody knows they lean left. I think that's pretty fair to say. And they're reporting that Donald Trump did, in fact, get the original 312 electoral votes, which is what Breitbart and some of the conservative websites were reporting, and that Kamala Harris had gotten the 226. So obviously Donald Trump won with the Electoral College. But if you look here, you actually can see the popular votes are in. Looks as though it was a pretty tight race when you look at the popular vote. Now, we don't know at this moment in time if any of those votes were fraudulent. I know that the Republicans worked hard to make this as free and fair an election as it possibly could be, and to get rid of a lot of the challenges that they had with voter fraud. But there were many instances, which I've mentioned in previous videos, of suspected voter fraud and also confirmed voter fraud from political entities and also law enforcement. So it's documented now. It's not like it's a conspiracy or anything. Law enforcement and other professionals in this industry have confirmed that there was some fraudulent activity. Not to mention, in many states throughout the country, there was not voter ID or any requirement to show proof of who you were in order to vote. So that really does make it very difficult for people to confirm whether or not those votes are accurate. And this happened in many, many states. I think it actually, there were no voter ID laws in every single state that Kamala won. Not that every single state that she won had fraud, but every state that she won did not require voter ID. So, that makes it very difficult to prove whether or not every single one of those popular votes was 100% accurate. But at least the states where they were able to, get rid of a lot of that corruption, fraud, um, they were able to get the most accurate results for the popular vote. So it looks like Kamala Harris won about 72.5 million votes. Donald Trump won 75.5 million votes. So he basically beat her by about 3 million votes or so. And then you did have some of those votes for the popular vote being split up amongst other candidates. So actually, if you look down here, you will see that there were other people who actually ran. Sometimes people don't know that other people run for president. They're just assuming we're locked in a two-party system and you're either voting Republican or Democrat. But as previously in other elections, Jill Stein, I believe she ran also in 2020 or 2016. I can't remember exactly which one. We'll probably take a look at that today. None of these people got any electoral votes. But she did get almost 1 million votes, and she's with the Green Party. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Green Party has been around, I think, since the early 2000s. So, that is an official party that people do run under. And every so often, somebody does come out of the woodworks and run under the Green Party. And they, usually don't win much, if not anything. But, who knows, in the future, there may be other parties and we may eventually break away from this two-party system. And you might actually get 3 or 4 other parties that really do help, not lock us into just two decisions, choose from one of these two people. Because a lot of times people, feel that you're picking the lesser of two evils. You don't really want either candidate, but you only have two options. So a lot of times people feel like they need to vote just for one person over the other person, even though they don't really like that person, just because they don't want the other person to get in. Like, for example, a lot of people who voted for Kamala, they didn't want her, but the Democrats basically forced her on them because they had no Democrat primary. They didn't let them choose their candidate. So they voted for Kamala because they didn't want Trump, but they didn't really want Kamala either. So that's not really, the best way to do politics in America. And it hasn't always been that way in the past. And we're going to look at some of that today. But Jill Stein took almost 1 million votes away from these two candidates. And so did Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, he was actually partnered with Trump already at this point, but he didn't have his name taken off of every single ballot across the country. So there were many people who voted for him because they just didn't like either one of these two people. But at this time, he had already thrown his hat in the ring to align with Trump, and probably wasn't even going to, it wasn't likely that he was going to be president anyway. But he still got almost 1 million votes. So there was definitely some popularity there. And then you also had this guy, Chase Oliver, for the Libertarian Party. And he got over 500,000 votes. Now, Donald Trump, towards the end of the campaign, he did steal away a lot of the libertarians, doing different things to appeal to them. I know a lot of it had to do with crypto because there's a lot of people who are into crypto that are libertarian voters. They are registered or at least, aligned with that party. So he probably stole a lot of people away from this guy, Chase Oliver, because of his endorsement of crypto and other things like that, other things that are important to the Libertarian Party. But either way, this guy, Chase Oliver, he still got over 500,000 votes. And then you have other candidates combined, got about 369. Sometimes people write in people. So you'll see, like, every once in a while, people will joke around about, Mickey Mouse got so many votes. That's because you have the option to write in a candidate. So sometimes people will just throw their vote away and write in somebody that'll never have a chance of being elected, or even a fictitious character, just because it's like a form of protest for the options that they've been given. But either way, if you look at all these, you got 7 and 7 is 1.4-ish, and then another 6, and then another 3. That's another 9. So you got almost 3 million votes, or 2.5, between 2.5 and 3 million, somewhere between there, was spent on these other candidates that did not go to either the Republican or the Democrat. So if you think about it, um, if Kamala, for example, got these other 2.5 million votes, um, she only had a 3 million gap between her and Trump. That 2.5 million would have made it a really close election. It might have even been considered too close to call, which would have been interesting to see how that unfolded. But just so you know, when you do cast your ballot for another candidate, and it's likely that they're not going to win, it's a throwaway vote. You're basically not voting for either party, but uh, your vote could have gone to somebody to really tip the scales. So for all those Democrats that didn't want to see Trump get elected, but they didn't want Kamala, they voted for Jill Stein or RFK or whoever. They helped Trump get elected because Kamala didn't, and she could have used those 2.5 million. Now, personally, I'm glad Trump got elected, but just to be logical, that's basically what happens when you cast your vote for somebody who is not likely to really be a serious candidate. And Jill Stein, she's never really gotten much in the past, nor this time. She's probably not ever going to win if she keeps running. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. might actually in the future, who knows? But he also is in his 70s now, so it's not likely that if he doesn't run again in 4 years, he might be too old by 8 years to actually, run at that point. But he might actually do some really great things with the Trump campaign now, because I think he's been appointed, for some health departments and stuff like that. So he's going to shake things up that way. But anyway, this is what the popular vote looks like. It looks like Donald Trump got 75.5 million. So if we're just looking at the last two elections, which he ran, 2016. So just based on the last two elections, 2016 and 2020, we can kind of compare and see how has things changed with his likability and him getting elected this time. So in 2016, that was an anomaly because people obviously just wanted change. They wanted somebody who was a fresh voice, who had something different to offer in office. So at that time, he won the Electoral College, but he didn't win the popular vote against Hillary Clinton. But he did win 62.9, so basically 63 million votes, just about. That was in 2016, and that was his first time running ever. See, look, Jill Stein did actually run for the Green Party back in 2016. And then you had the Libertarian Party here, Gary Johnson. So these two, and none of them got any electoral votes. So these two have been, really trying to make their way into politics, and these two parties have been really trying to be contenders so that it's not just a two-party system anymore. But if you look here, the Libertarian Party back then got 4.5 million votes, and Jill Stein got 1.4. On the other, chart this time for the popular vote in 2024, Jill Stein went all the way down to 732,000. So she basically took what she got in 2016 and cut it in half, which kind of tells you if your popularity is not growing over time, people are likely not either interested in your message or they just don't want you as their candidate. So she had a good run. She, tried in 2016. What as far as she can go with the 1.4, because now she's down to half that. I don't think she's ever going to run again, but if she does, she'll likely have less interest because her interest has been dwindling since 2016, 8 years ago. And then also the Libertarian vote this time around with Chase Oliver got 623,000 votes, but back in 2016, it got 4.4 million. So either a lot more people like Gary Johnson or people just decided they didn't want to cast their vote for a third party. They wanted it to go to either the Democrat or Republican candidate. But if you look here, Donald Trump got his 63 million basically votes back in 2016. Now, if we compare that to 2020, he was up to 74 million. So he went, over 10 million votes in just 4 years. he still allegedly lost this election. The only reason I say allegedly is because he believes that it was stolen from him and that there was fraud. So that's something that the Trump administration coming in now is going to have to get to the bottom of, because he's already made these accusations. So he's going to have to prove it, because he made such a big stink about it for so long that it's probably likely he's going to have to, say something about it right now. Yeah, so basically his popularity increased in 2020. He got another 10 million plus votes for the popular vote. He, like I said, still lost because of the Electoral College, but then again, that's the way that our American system works, which is a better way. But he actually gained in popularity. And then if we look at his third term in 2024, he actually went to 75.5 million, like we said. So his popularity increased year over year with each election, which is pretty incredible, because a lot of times in history that dwindles, right? People kind of heard what you had to say the first time. You came in, you did your thing, and they got a taste of it. They got to see for their own eyes if what you said was true. A lot of times politicians don't carry through on what they say they're going to do. Trump did and over delivered, which is really incredible. And that is like one of the best practices in business. And he's a businessman. So that's, kind of where he probably gets that from. But you can see that the people really did like him more and more over time. And he gained more followers, more voters, because his popularity increased. He went up over another million votes this time in 2024. So from the time he started running in 2016 was the 63 million votes. He got 75. That's basically 13 million vote increase from the time that he ran the very first time. So over the years, he picked up 13 million new fans, 13 million people who said, you know what, I didn't like this guy at first, but I like him now. And that's a lot of people. That's a percentage of the population. That's a significant number when you have 350 million people in America and 13 million people decide they like you more now than they did back then. And you've been on TV constantly. You've been in the news. He's always in the spotlight, and it doesn't look like people got sick of him. If anything, it looks like more people realized that he does what he says he's going to do, and they liked his message, and they wanted to support him in these elections. So it's kind of unheard of. It's very interesting to see a politician do that, because over time you do tend to lose steam. People don't really like you as much. I think the only time that might have happened, but again, it could have been because the population grew, was likely George Washington was more popular his second time than his first time, because he was, basically they were trying to make him king, and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to have America be just like the royal, monarch in England and in Great Britain, which is what they were, fighting against. So he rightfully and really paved the way. He stepped down, but more people liked him his second time than his first time. So it's very rare that happens. Take somebody like Barack Obama, for example. He ran in 2008 the first time, and obviously this was a big historical moment. He made history being the first black man to become president of the United States, and a lot of people voted for him specifically just because they wanted to be a part of something cool in history that they could say, they voted for that change, and it went down in the history books because he still, till this day, remains the only black man to be president of the United States at this point. And it's been quite a few terms since he was president. But if you look at even him, 69 million votes was what he got in 2008 because people wanted that. They were ready for that. But if you look at his second term in 2012, he got 65 million votes. So he actually lost about, 4 or 5 million votes, give or take, because his second time around, they kind of got an idea as to what he was about, and they just didn't like his policies, and they didn't want another 4 years of that. At least those 4 million people didn't. So they decided to either not vote or cast their vote with somebody else. Like I said, it's not common to see a politician get more popular over time. But if we look at, some interesting historical stuff here. So a lot of times people say, we have a two-party system, and uh, it's corrupt and it's crazy, or anti-American, or whatever you want to say. If you actually look back at history, so this is the first elections for the American presidency. You have George Washington. He ran unopposed because at that time, everybody basically, almost appointed him president. They wanted him to lead the country. And the country was basically still being formed. In 1776, we had the Revolutionary War, but 1789, I believe the Constitution was drafted. So, it took, or ratified, it took, you know, there was a lot going on with the founders, and, people really, liked them setting up this structure, and they just, stood behind them for a very long time after that. But if you look at the third term, after George Washington had served his 2 terms and stepped down, Thomas Jefferson ran against John Adams. But look, it used to be the Federal, the original party was the Federalist Party, which is what George Washington was a part of. But Thomas Jefferson was the first Democrat-Republican. So the party was actually combined. Right now, it's fractured. It's split into Democrat or Republican. But back then, it used to be the Democrat-Republican Party. It was one party. And he was the first politician to run as a secondary party, right, against the, so that there was some choice between the two. And it wasn't just, another monarch where there's a king that's appointed. So, John Adams won, likely because he was part of the Federalist Party, which is what George Washington was a part of. And the people loved George Washington so much that they wanted to continue that trend with another member of the Federalist Party. So he kind of had that way paved for him. But we've had the Democrat, Republican parties, it was called different things over time. But essentially, you did have a secondary party since basically the beginning of this country, 1796. I mean, everything was still going on. The founders were all still alive and running things and building America. We had just gotten everything basically solidified. The war was over. The Constitution was enacted. And we basically had our laws and our structure and everything. But America was still very much in its infancy. And even back as far as then, we had 2 parties. So to say that, the 2-party system is somehow corrupted our system, our governing way of life in America, you have to kind of look back at history to see the truth. And we've always had 2 parties. We've always had, 2 candidates with 2 different parties who ran for the presidency as far back as the beginning of the country. So that is something that has been a part of our history for a long time, and it probably will continue to be in the future. I hope to see more parties gain traction. There have been a lot of different types of parties over the years. A lot of different politicians tried different things. They tried to create the Whig Party at one point. They tried to create the States' Right, the Reform Party, all these different parties, and none of them ever really caught fire. Eventually, the Federalist Party did go away, but it kind of formed into the Republican Party. The Democratic Republican Party just basically became the Democrat Party. So, yeah, I mean, maybe down the road you will see a 3rd party or 4th party come about, and those people gain traction. So it really does become a battle, and people start voting for the politician and their policies rather than just the party. And this is why I always kind of recommend people remain independent and make the politicians fight for your vote. Because if you register as a Republican or a Democrat, yes, you get to vote in the primary and you get to pick your candidate. But if you don't register as one of those parties, they don't know who you're voting for every single election. So they really have to fight to work for the independents. That's why a lot of times you'll see politicians go for the independents during an election, because they're trying to get the middle ground. They're trying to get the people who haven't, quote unquote, decided yet. Even if you have, on paper, they don't know that because you're not pledging your allegiance to a specific party. So it might be a good idea, if you don't want to, throw your hat in the ring for any specific party, to be independent, not register with either one, and make the politicians work for your vote. It makes things a lot harder for them, which is better for us. The politicians are supposed to work for us, the people, not the other way around. But just to give you another idea as to, how things unfolded with this whole two-party system, it wasn't until 1824 that you saw additional people running for president, and it wasn't just, one or two options. So it was the election of 1824. Look at how many terms had passed from the first election, 1796, where there were the first time there were two candidates, 1796 to 1824. That's 28 years, so basically 30 years. And it took that long for other candidates to pop up and say, I want to also run for president. You shouldn't just have a choice between two people. So, it took a long time for this system to get established, but here we are today. You do still have multiple people running, like we saw. You have, Jill Stein and Chase Oliver and other people this election, but they never really gained traction. It just came down to the two parties, Trump or Kamala. So that's a little recap on, you know, American politics and elections in the past, just to give people a better idea. Because I always think it's better to, take history into context and see what things actually look like in the past, because sometimes we don't really know. And there's so much more we could dive into with this. But I have a feeling we may be on a Republican streak going forward. Um, we'll see how well Trump does in this election, in this term, rather. Um, if he does a great job and he really delivers on a lot of promises that he made from the first election and also this second election, there's a good chance the country may be so, excited to continue that trend that they may elect another Republican after Trump. So it's likely that we might have a few more terms of Republican presidents going forward. Now, let's see, anything could happen over the next few years, so we really don't know. Kind of seems like things go that way sometimes, especially when the country gets in such a bad state that the people want change. And when they get a taste of that change being a positive impact on their life, they tend to want to continue that trend. I mean, if you look at 1968 election, um, President Nixon won, and he won a second term in 1972, and the country was doing pretty good at that time. It was post the basically late 1960s, so the 60s era had kind of taken the country by storm. There was a lot of things with the hippie movement, the assassination of JFK. Lyndon B. Johnson was not really considered a very liked president. He only served one term, and after that, you had Nixon for two terms. You had a one term in between with President Carter, um, who the people really did not like. I think still to this day, he goes down in history as one of the least favorable presidents in American history. But then immediately after that, you had Reagan won two terms consecutively, 1980 and 1984. And then you had George Bush Sr. for 88. So from 1968 to 88, a 20-year block of time, you only had one Democrat president for 4 years. So, we'll see what happens in the future. But if Trump does a great job, the country may be so, interested in continuing that trend of, a positive economy, safe country, secure borders, things like that, that they may vote Republican candidates in going forward for maybe another 2 or 3 terms. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. Actually, it's pretty interesting because he's only president-elect at this moment, and he did this his first time around too. When he was president-elect, he was already doing a lot of interesting things real fast early on before he even took office. But, some people have been posting, and this is a little punch list um, that Donald Trump had shared on his social media. But this is some of the stuff that he's already accomplished in 2024 as president-elect before even taking office. The stock market has hit all-time highs. That's true. It really has. It's been going crazy lately. The crypto market has been going crazy. A lot of things are really, amping up economically already, and he hasn't even taken office yet. You also have a lot of things with foreign affairs. The migrants coming to our border are already, being stopped or deciding not to come because they know that secure borders are coming. Some of them are racing to our border to get here before that time, but they're just going to end up getting deported from Trump's team anyway. And he's already appointed his head of Department of, I think, Homeland Security or something, to handle the border situation. So we'll see that unfold. But you have Hamas is calling for an end to war. Bitcoin has actually hit an all-time high of 90,000. I'm probably going to do a couple of videos here going forward on the crypto industry just because I find it interesting and I think it's going to play a big part of our future, especially as we get into a more technology-driven future. Even if you're not a fan of Bitcoin, there are people who hate the stock market because it can be, corrupted or manipulated. There are people who are involved in inside trading, but it doesn't mean that the stock market's going away. And there are still people who put their money into it every single day and make profits and do well and get rich. So it's not going anywhere. Same thing is likely for the crypto industry. Just because there's a lot of fraud or corruption in it, or a lot of people think that it's worthless, it's digital, it's not real, it's not going anywhere. So, we're going to take a look at that a little bit here going forward. But Bitcoin hit an all-time high ever since 2009 of $90,000 per token. That's incredible. But this is just a little punch list of some of the interesting stuff that Trump has already been able to accomplish as president-elect. He's also appointed a lot of people already. Dan Scavino, he's going to be assistant to the president, deputy chief of staff. Stephen Miller, James Blair, and many, many others have already been appointed positions in his cabinet. The governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, she was appointed Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are working together on a Department of Government Efficiency. It's kind of funny. He put Doge because that's a crypto token, and for a while Elon Musk was saying Doge. So we'll see what people say about that in the crypto industry. But they're partnered up, teaming together to help Trump in his administration. Pete Hegseth was put in charge of the Secretary of Defense for Trump's cabinet, and many, many other people are being appointed positions already. So that's just another recap for the post-election situation we're in, and what's going on with President-elect Trump and what he's accomplishing, getting done so far. I'm interested to see what your thoughts are about all this, and do you see a bright future ahead? Do you see that our country is headed towards great economic times, safer times, more prosperous times? Or do you think that we're headed into a dark future? There are also a lot of people who are very scared. There are a lot of people who voted for Kamala that are acting erratic and doing crazy things because they're afraid of this presidency. So either way, whatever side you voted for, I'm interested to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Tell me what you think. What does the next 4 years look like? All right, well, that's it for this video. We're definitely going to dive into a lot more topics going forward now that the election's over. I'm going to cover maybe a little bit more of this stuff just because it's so pressing and it's so breaking every day is like something new. So we're definitely going to cover politics a lot on this channel for the next 4 years, just because there's going to be so many things happening. But I'm going to get into other topics again soon. Finances, economics, business, different things. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share all that good stuff. It does help the channel. And put in the comments whatever it is that you want to see me do videos on. Let me know, and I will work to do that. I will work to create those videos for you. All right, that's it for this video, everybody. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms. Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories available right now, many different items on our storefront. You can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throw in your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produce. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two, and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.